So we're going to be discussing consumption. I, of course, have with me Mr. Sodhi, Mr. Rai with me on stage. Joining us virtually is going to be Mr. Puneet Chhatwal of Indian Hotels, as well as Mr. Ashok Tyagi of DLF. Mr. Sodhi, let me come to you first. Not only because I love food, and it's always nice to talk first about food, I want to get a sense from you, sir. The pandemic taught us how we need to trust brands again. There was certainly a movement going back towards the trusted brands. I'm sure you must have been a big winner. Look at your logistics, the cold storage that you have. Did you win in 2020?
I mean, 2020, not only for dairy or for AMUL, for the whole food sector, 2020 was a positive. I mean, you can all understand that during this COVID, sitting at home, each and every family member can participate at one topic together was food, from where to buy, what to cook, what recipe to see on YouTube, and who will take the photographs and put it on Instagram, and then discuss it. So we were lucky. So food, that definitely was the main trust center during COVID, but also it was very good for the packed or organized sector. Like, people were consuming food, but let me tell you, out of the 40 lakh crore total food basket in India, only 4 lakh crore or 4.5 lakh crore is organized. Dairy is 8 lakh crore or organized 2.5 lakh crore. That is 35%. But during this COVID, first immunity and health safety came. So people shifted more towards healthy and immunity boosting product, then towards packed products, then towards branded, trustworthy brands, available brands, affordable brands, and no doubt visible brands also. And AMUL was available, AMUL was affordable, AMUL was trustworthy, and not only trustworthy, I mean, people had a lot of faith, blind faith in the brand. So for us, it was a good thing. And frankly speaking, for our sector, COVID has given us a lot of challenges, lot of learnings, and lot of leadership and future lessons also. And we are lucky. And I think all the sectors are really, whole industry, whole Indian sector has come out a lot of innovation during this COVID. I mean, I tell you, in case of packed product, shift was taking place around 8 to 10% from unpacked or unbranded to the packing. But during COVID, it multiplied 3 to 4x. And that base has been built now. We have to further build on this. And also, this was a very good time to connect with the customers. I mean, when your customer is with your family member, and when he or she was in distress, we found this is the best time to connect. And connect how you advertise, you visible on the media, and what was the most watched media was the news. So I think we took a lot of opportunity, and because we were available, we could get the good benefit out of it.
So it has been utterly, butterly delicious despite the pandemic. Mr. Rai, if I can come to you. So we were all, of course, obsessed with food. We were also obsessed with our phones, our laptops. And there was another very big buzzword, which was, of course, vocal for local and being Atmanirbhar. There has been a huge scheme that has been announced by the government, the production-linked incentive scheme. You have been a beneficiary of that. So can you share with us, going forward, when we talk about consumption, our marriage with the smartphones and the tablets, and what Lava's plans are?
Okay. So, first of all, on the subject consumption and how COVID has changed the consumption, after I saw this topic, I thought about it. And to my view, over the mid to long term, there's not going to be great change in the consumption pattern. In the short term, there are digital consumption, and because of that, that is fine. But over the long term, I don't think there'll be much change. And let me tell you why I'm saying what I'm saying. I called up my China team to understand where the pandemic has gone, as to what are the changes post-pandemic, almost like they're in the post-pandemic era. Every single thing is buzzing, whether restaurants or aircrafts or public transport or even cinema halls, now. They are buzzing now. So generally, after pandemic, because humans have huge value, we are going to be, overcoming the pandemic sooner or later. It's just a matter of, what kind of, leadership we actually exhibit, from India. So eventually, things are going to be all right. But from the COVID side, how one can still be benefited if we step back a little and see how the world has printed notes, tens of trillions of dollars got printed. And if you look at US, whether it is bond or stock, they are at the peak. So money is going to travel towards the east. So whether in east it is going to, a lot of money is going to go to China. It is our opportunity to take the money in India, and for which government is doing all the right things. So whether it was PLI or, the budget, the way the budget is coming. And if we are able to create our companies, create, great economy and jobs, etc., truly with that, the consumption pattern is going to change. And at Lava, if you ask me what we are doing, we believe that anything which is valuable, the power of India is to make it accessible. That's what we can do. And therefore, we are actually working on that count as we are building this ecosystem of design, supply chain, the manufacturing in India. Less than $200 market, which is about 66% of the world market and about 25% in terms of value. I think Indian companies must dominate, because the process is, as we acquire skill at 17% per capita, we are going to definitely be the most competitive in the world. So that's what we are looking at, and we are working towards that. Yeah.
Since you've talked about the bond rates and how things are moving, the massive liquidity, what's happening in the US, I don't even know if our grandchildren will see the repayment of the US debt. I want to build on that point, because what we've also seen in the Indian banking sector is the banks being in the mood to lend, to give consumption a chance. We have seen interest rates for home loans being at record lows. And with that, Mr. Ashok Tyagi, I come to you. We've never seen these kind of loan rates when it comes to home loans. How is that impacting the real estate market? This time round, would you say consumption, the recovery is actually for real? Is the most expensive item we'll ever buy a property?
So ever since the unlockdown sort of commenced from August, September, we have seen a fairly sustained, recovery of demand. Now it's been almost 6 months after that. A, it's been across geographies. B, it's been across price points and segments. So it's not just that it's in the affordable segment, it's also in the luxury and even in the super luxury segment. That's for sure. And clearly the home loan rates are proving to be a huge positive driver to this entire thing, I mean, while at one time, about a year and a half back, there was some degree of setback when a lot of HFCs came under stress. But I think with the banking home loan rates and, with other institutions like HDFC, etc., I think home loans are available now on tap. They are available at rates which at least are definitely a generational low, if not a historical low. And I think that's clearly driving more and more people to take their decisions to buying the houses.
Okay. So with that, I'd like to go across to Mr. Puneet Chhatwal. We are, of course, at the Taj in New Delhi. And I'd like to talk a little to you about hospitality. We just heard what Mr. Tyagi is saying from DLF about recovery in the real estate sector. How has it been for hospitality? We used to love staycations, but now it's about workstations. We can, with permissions from our bosses, hopefully, work at beaches, we can work at mountains, from the mountains. How is your company adapting to all of this?
I think all the hotel brands and companies have been using whatever they could to drive business in their properties. And, human being is very adaptable to any kind of circumstances, as we have also seen during these COVID times. And I think what has worked very well is for people to go away to a resort kind of destination, either on the hills or on the beaches or elsewhere, even in forests, as long as you had good Wi-Fi connectivity, people have been able to combine business and leisure and have taken advantage of most of these destinations. And we are beginning to see that also happening in metros and also in city locations, whether people call it staycations or biscations or call it urban leisure. It does not matter what we call it, but definitely that's a trend that is growing. And I think the industry is well positioned to capitalize on this opportunity.
Okay, since I just heard the word urban, I want to talk about rural versus urban, and I'm going to do that with you, Mr. Sodhi. Is there a big difference in the consumption that you have seen when it comes to branded food products in rural versus urban? I don't mean just by the size of the packet, but also the habits. For example, a lot of us now are saying we want to go vegan, dairy is not the way to go, बच्चों को दूध पीने की ज़रूरत नहीं है.
Nayantara ji, you asked me two questions. One is rural urban and second is a vegan. So first let me take on rural urban. No doubt India's 68% urban, 68% rural population, 32% urban, but and you see the income, more than 50% money is in urban India. But I'll tell you, there is rural in the Delhi also, Bombay also, and there is urban also in a village of 10,000. It all depend upon the income and aspiration level. So, but what we have seen is now, after this COVID, one shift which we have seen very good and very favorable food sector is percentage of shift is more in the tier 2, 3A, B and C cities vis-a-vis the metro or bigger cities, because they were more or less more on the organized or packed. But only difference in smaller places, lower end or the rural, which we call it, shift is more towards smaller packs or value packs or MRP packs, 5 rupee, 10 rupee, 20 rupee. So that is one thing. But ultimately, dekhiye, Narendra ji, all depends on the income, but whatever, whether we like it or we don't like it, gradually disparity between the rural and the urban India is widening. Income levels of urban increasing per family, rural income is reducing. If you take last 50, 60 years, we say K-level growth. That is what is happening. People who are rich, they are becoming more richer. People who are poor, becoming more poor because of, more urban-centric policies. Now coming to your vegan thing.
वो भी तो urban-rural divide है.
नहीं वो थोड़ा, that is more like not rural urban. I say people with more जो fat try, हर चीज में नया try करना चाहते हैं. देखिए vegan, sattvic, organic, nothing wrong. One should try. Food is such a product where you can experiment a lot. You can get new things. You should try and taste is up. Only being a servant of farmers, or that to 3.6 million farmers, I can only say that definitely you should promote your category. Say we sell soya milk, almond milk, but why you call it milk? One side you say milk is cruel, it is giving a lot of cruelty, it is not, nutrition is not good. Other side you want to adopt our name. Just cruelty पे बोलूं, देखिए लोग बोलते हैं कि milking is, you are very cruel to the animals. देखिए exceptions are always there. In some foreign countries, some cow has not been treated. You put on internet say कि milking is very cruelty. I can give you 100 examples where children are treating their parents well. And is it cruelty? Should the parents stop parenting? Then say, no, no animal drinks milk. I agree. After the age, no animal. But why a human being should drink? But do you want to become animal? Do you want to become dirt-like animal? Because brain is not developed, because
Correct.
lactose in milk gives you brain development. Do you want to become like animal? They just survive for 5 to 15 years. Your age is 100 years. Why?
The
Because of the
longevity-
protein or vitamins.
Of course, we are of course having those supplements as well. But you know, Mr. Rai, I'd love to get your views on this as well. He has seen big difference in the consumption habits in between rural and urban centers. The growth has also come from the tier 2, tier 3 smaller cities. What about lava? What about consumer electronics? Is that because the base effect is also coming at play over there?
Yeah. So, let me quote Steve Jobs first.
Why not?
He's a most valuable person. He said, simple is harder than complex. But you really need to work hard to get your thinking clean to make it simple. But once you get there, you can move mountains, actually. So, if rural or urban, whatever we are talking, as Mrs. Sodhi also mentioned, it's all about in the rural India because of the economy.
Because that's where the volumes will come from.
Volumes, definitely. Because there is no change post-pandemic, that's what I'm saying. Volumes are coming still from the rural India because, there was a huge pent-up demand and rural India lapped up for their phones, etc., etc. And also, of course, because especially in our industry, because of the digital means requirement, in the schools, etc., there was a very big demand and there's a huge shortage of material also. So I think generally at the higher level, whether it is urban, because of certain economic pattern, you are going to get the high level of products and at the lower, in the rural India, you get a lower end product because of the economy per se. Yeah.
Okay. With that, Mr. Tyagi, let me come to you. What we also saw as a habit in the urban centers was, nahi rehna cities mein. Let's go out. Let's go to nature, forest, beaches, mountains. Now, what is peculiar is that a lot of you in the real estate sector, because the way it was shaping up, sold your land from those places and increased your holdings in the Delhi, the Mumbai, the Pune, the Bengaluru. Will you change that habit now? Will you have to go back to the picturesque areas where you were earlier buying land?
So, vacation homes were a small segment of the entire market, in all fairness. You are correct that for the last many years, most of the established players were not developing, significant developments in the vacation segments. I think clearly maybe partly driven by COVID and partly driven, I think, also by the general recovery across the sector. People are looking at sort of, developing the parcels that they have in those locations. We ourselves did a launch in Kasauli about 4 months back. It was like a sellout. It sold very well. We have a couple of planned developments in the pipeline in Goa, one more in Kasauli, So clearly, I think we are no longer looking at divesting land parcels in those locations. We do believe that the best method of maximizing the gains is to actually develop the requisite developments there, be it apartments, be it villas, be it commercial, and that's the way to sort of unlock those parcels. Versus in the past when we would have just looked at a customer to sort of sell the land parcel outright. So clearly there's been a slight change of thinking for sure, at least with us definitely, and I'm sure across the industry also.
Okay, Mr. Chhatwal, I want to come to you. On 1st of April, we're going to see vaccines being opened up for those who are above age of 45. I'm not going to embarrass my panelists and ask them, have they received the first shot? But there are many ones that we know who have. Vaccination drive, as it picks up, what is it going to mean for the hospitality industry, which till, since the breakout of the COVID, has pretty much been relying on leisure travel?
See, it's anyone's guess. If you had posed the same question 2 weeks ago, when the number of cases were down to less than 10,000 a day, we would have said, well, within the next 3 or 6 months, everything should be looking very hunky-dory. However, what the last 2 weeks have shown is again, we've been put behind by a few months. But having said that, the vaccination program across the globe will be the key to how travel and tourism will recover. It will be the single decisive factor in terms of when international travel will commence. The other important factor would be how we start having a kind of a uniform policies amongst nations as to how they check this kind of vaccine passport, if you want to call it, while crossing the borders to make travel easier. And I think once that happens, things will start coming back. So anybody's guess, anything between 6 to 18 months is a very likely time period in which things should start coming back to pre-COVID level.
Okay, so 6 to 8 months is what Mr. Chhatwal is thinking is going to come back to normal. I'll give you the final question, Mr. Sodhi. You know, like I said, AMUL, very, very trusted brand. You've obviously had to innovate during the pandemic. Immunity is something that we were all talking a lot about. For the post-COVID, the post-vaccinated world, what can we expect from AMUL?
I mean, AMUL, we are lucky that AMUL is in a food category which is ever growing. See, 1.35 billion people today in India, 1.35 billion stomach, and it will be 1.7 billion stomach by 2050. More money, more disposable income, more packed, more. So one is, growth is going to come across India. What we are doing is we are going to new geographies. Like we have started in milk collection and milk market in Guwahati or Northeast, or in Andhra, or in Punjab, or in Jammu and Kashmir. I mean, today 1.5 lakh liter, we are collecting milk in the Jammu and Kashmir Valley from the farmers through local cooperative and marketing within Kashmir Valley. So within milk, plus some other food category, whether we are investing more, going to invest in bakery, but when we say bakery, means butter-based bakery. In Delhi, we are launching AMUL butter bread. So andar bhi butter, bahar bhi, not with palm oil. What
do you mean andar butter, bahar butter?
See, in bread, they add lot of vegetable refined oil, palm oil. So we have replaced that palm oil with the butter. So that is the thing.
Chalo. We in Delhi who live here are waiting for this double-edged butter. More time for gymming also, I guess we're going to need. With that, I'd like to thank all of my panelists for joining us here virtually as well as in person. Thank you so much.